Thanks for tuning in. It's 10 a.m. Tuesday, April 22nd here in Korea, live from Seoul. I'm Jin-joo. It's now the 7th day of search and rescue operations for those on board the sunken Sewol-ho ferry. Rescue teams are doing everything they can at the site of the accident in the hope of finding any survivors. However, so far, only bodies have been recovered and the death toll is rising fast, standing at 104 as of now. Let's go straight to our Hwang Sung-hee at the Paengmok-hang harbor, just 20 kilometers away from the accident site. Sung-hee, fill us in on the latest.
Jin-joo, like you said, the confirmed death toll is rising at a very rapid pace. Most of the bodies coming here have not been identified yet, but they do come with very detailed descriptions like what they were wearing, the length of their hair, or even the shape of their earrings. Now, these family members of the missing who have been camping out here at the Paengmok-hang harbor have been gathered around the list trying to match the descriptions with their loved ones. It's really a heartbreaking sight to see as parents break down into tears when it is confirmed that it is their child's body. Still, some 200 people remain missing and nearly 90% of those are students from Tanwon High School.
It surely is a heartbreaking sight indeed. Now, how about the rescue operations? How's it going?
Well, Jin-joo, even throughout the night, the divers continued their attempts to enter the vessel using the 5 guide ropes that they installed to the vessel earlier on. They are focusing their search on the 3rd and 4th floors of the vessel, which is where the cafeteria and cabins are located, and which is also where many passengers were believed to have been at the time of the accident. The rescue team is also receiving foreign support. Experts from the United States and the Netherlands are here in Jin-joo helping out with the rescue operations. And since yesterday, 2 remotely operated vehicles sent by the U.S. were deployed to search inside the vessel. More divers are expected to participate in the search operations as they try to take advantage of the neap tides that have started. This was Hwang Sung-hee reporting from Paengmok-hang harbor.
Now, in the days that immediately followed the Sewol-ho ferry accident, search and rescue efforts were hampered by fast-moving tidal currents. But thankfully, conditions have improved this week, which should help divers navigate through treacherous waters near the sunken vessel. Our Park Ji-won has the details.
Calm waves and clear skies. Wind speeds and wave heights were cut in half on Monday compared to the previous day as a high-pressure front moved into the area. Weather conditions have finally turned favorable for search and rescue crews in waters off Jin-joo Island, and the clear weather is forecast to continue through this Friday. Strong tidal currents, which significantly hampered the rescue operations last week, have also slowed.
Last week was the time when the current speeds were the fastest, and from the 19th it has been slowing down. Starting this Tuesday, the speeds will be at their slowest.
Last week, the maximum speed of the currents in the area were 2.8 meters per second, or over 10 kilometers per hour. That's expected to drop as low as about 1 meter per second, especially from this Tuesday to Thursday. When tidal currents slow, underwater visibility improves with less floating particles in the sea. That's why experts believe this week will be a turning point in search operations inside the sunken Sewol-ho ferry. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Air, land, and sea, scores of boats and hundreds of Coast Guard, Navy, and civilian divers bob up and down on the water, and unmanned submersibles scour the seabed. The sun setting for the day doesn't stop efforts either, as flares fired by boats and aircraft illuminate the night sky. Seo-mi reports.
It's a battle against time to find missing passengers of the horrific accident. The joint rescue team, composed of civilians, government and military personnel, work around the clock in their search. On Monday, some 200 vessels were deployed in the search mission. The small rubber boats from the Coast Guard and Navy sent their divers into the water, while small fishing boats were used by civilian divers. Large patrol ships were dispatched further out, providing safety equipment for the divers and standing by in case of any emergencies. The core operations were conducted from rescue ships. The Paengmok-hang vessel carried salvage equipment and Cheongae-jinam vessel specialized for underwater rescue, while the Dokdo amphibious assault ship had medical facilities and communications equipment. Aside from the vessels, some 30 aircraft were deployed, while over 600 rescue workers, including those from the Navy, Fire Department and civilian divers, took part in the operation. This joint rescue team managed to extend the guideline by 15 meters, stepping up the in-vessel search efforts. Meanwhile, 2 remotely operated vehicles were deployed to search inside the vehicle and side-scan sonars to identify bodies that could potentially drift away. The search efforts continued late into the night when squid fishing boats came to the aid with their lighting equipment.
We're keeping the fishing lights on here all night to help the rescue workers during their search.
Joint search efforts continue in order to find each and every person and return them to their loved ones. 서미소랑, 아리랑 뉴스.
Amid dimming hope of finding more survivors, the families continue their wait for any news of their loved ones who were on board the ill-fated ferry. They have been huddled in an indoor gymnasium near the accident site in Jin-joo, many of them in deteriorating health condition. Our Hwang Sung-hee joins us live. Jie?
Jin-joo, as divers continue to pull out bodies this morning, the air is heavier than ever here. It's quite calm at the moment, though, with many of the families just helplessly looking at a television screen showing a list of descriptions of what the newly discovered bodies look like. As you'd expected, after 7 days of waiting, the families look physically and emotionally exhausted, with some losing hope. While many want to believe their sons and daughters are still alive, hopes are fading for others, and now they just want to find their loved ones' bodies so they can say one final goodbye. They're afraid that if refloating the submerged ferry using does not take place soon, they won't even be able to recognize the faces of their children. Experts say bodies trapped inside the sunken ferry would start decomposing after a few days. From time to time, when families confirm a body discovered is their child, howls of horror, yelling in anger, and cries of grief fill the auditorium. The despair and sorrow fills the room. It's truly heartbreaking, Jin-joo.
Just looking at the descriptions on the screen will be torturous to the families. Now, we hear that a briefing took place about the progress of rescue operations. Fill us in on that.
Yes, Jin-joo, that's right. The representative of the families told the others at the podium yesterday that he asked authorities to wrap up search and rescue operations by this Thursday. He said the authorities pledged to do their best to meet the deadline. As to complaints from the families that the oil spill is damaging bodies, the representative said that using chemical products to stop the oil spill could worsen conditions when it comes to preserving the bodies still trapped in the water. He went on to say the first priority is still rescue operations. This has been Hwang Sung-hee reporting live from the Jin-joo Auditorium.
Now, as search efforts continue, the joint investigation team of police and prosecutors are very much entrenched in evidence and allegations as they try to figure out what exactly happened in those final moments. We connect live to our Eunice Kim, who's following the developments at the news center. Now, Eunice, additional arrests were made yesterday on crew members of this as we're hearing more about their escape from the ill-fated ferry.
Hi, Jin-joo. That's right. Investigators are reviewing a testimony by one of the escaped crew members who said that walkie-talkies were used to coordinate a last-ditch effort to leave the heavily listed Sewol-ho ferry. Now, according to reports, an evacuation order came down to the engine room, and crew members are said to have traveled through a passageway accessible only to crew to gather on the 3rd floor before making their escape together. Meanwhile, the joint investigation team arrested 4 additional crew yesterday. A chief engineer and first and second mates were among them, bringing the total number of suspects to 7, including the captain and 2 crew members who were arrested over the weekend.
The pressure is definitely on the crew. We heard of a suicide attempt by one of the engineers being questioned yesterday, but investigators are also expanding their probe on the ferry company.
That's right. Investigators are looking into whether too much cargo was loaded onto the ship and whether the cargo were not properly tied down, a practice past employees of the Cheonghae Shipping Company are coming out to say was customary for the operator. Investigators are also examining past records to see whether there were any irregularities in the 20-year-old ship's renovation and whether the captain and crew were sufficiently trained in safety procedures. They're also combing through Kakao Talk messages and video records from the nearly 500 people who were on board to backtrack those final moments aboard the ship. That's all from me for now. Back to you, Jin-joo.
Now, President Paengmok-hang has spoken out in no uncertain terms about the captain and crew of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, likening their actions to murder. She also gave a slap on the wrist to public officials who have been criticized for inefficiency and backed it up with a real threat to punish those responsible. ARIRANG News' Yoo Di-an reports.
먼저 무엇보다 선장과 일부 승무원들의 행위는 상식적으로 도저히 납득할 수 없고 용납될 수 없는 살인과도 같은 행태였습니다.
Likening the act to murder, President Paengmok-hang criticized the actions taken by the captain and his crew at the time of the accident during a meeting with senior secretaries on Monday. A communications log had revealed that the captain and crew members of the Sewol-ho ferry had called on passengers to stay where they were during the time of the accident. President Park vowed to make sure justice is handed down.
저는 반드시 단계별로 철저하게 규명해서 무책임과 부조리, 잘못된 부분에 대해서는 강력히 책임을 물을 것입니다.
The captain and two other crew members are now charged with negligence of duty and violation of maritime law. President Park also had pointed words for public officials, some of whom have been facing criticism for inadequate efforts in rescue operations.
국민들이 공무원을 불신하고 책임 행정을 하지 못하고 있다는 비난을 받는다면 그 책무를 소홀히 하고 있는 것이고 그 자리에 있을 존재의 이유가 없는 것입니다.
During the days following the accident, families of the victims grew furious at the government-related personnel and also the Coast Guard for making conflicting announcements on the number of victims and survivors. The families also expressed frustration that the numbers of rescue personnel dispatched to the site and the numbers announced by the government did not match up. Yoo Di-an, ARIRANG News.
As the death toll continues to rise as the day progresses, local hospitals near the accident site and in the city of Ansan, the home to the students who were on board the ferry, are working around the clock to receive the identified bodies. Our Kwon So-ah is out there at the hospital. So-ah, what's the latest there?
Jin-joo, a total of 11 deceased were or are expected to be released today. Now, just a while ago, I was near the funeral hall here at the Korea University Ansan Hospital, where a 17-year-old male student's body of the Tanwon High School was released, and I saw how the family's cries were very, very painful. Now, as the mourning is progressing, more mourners are visiting the hospital in grief of the past that earlier arrived here at the Korea University Ansan Hospital. Now, not only acquaintances, but many other citizens expressed their condolences here too. Meanwhile, around 70 students who survived the ferry accident are being treated here at the hospital. Many of them are suffering from mental stress and depression, but the director of the hospital said in a briefing Monday that their conditions have improved a lot since they arrived here. Now, sophomores and seniors of Tanwon High School are expected to return to their classrooms on Thursday, as the school will reopen its doors to let them get back to their daily lives. Now, along with the regular classes, the focus will be on helping the students cope with the traumatic events of the past several days with the help of doctors and therapists.
So we also hear that a group memorial altar will be set up in Ansan near the hospital you're at, so that people can say their last goodbyes and pay respects to the deceased.
That's true, Jin-joo, and that group memorial altar will be set up at the Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall, which is just around 10 minutes away from the hospital here. So the families and friends of the deceased can pay their last respects beginning on Wednesday. Now, some parents have delayed releasing their children after requesting an autopsy to find out the direct cause of the death. They want to know whether their children died from drowning or from hypothermia after waiting inside an air pocket in the vessel. Now, this is critical in determining whether the government was fast enough with their rescue operations, and parents say they will hold the government responsible if this was not the case. Now, just a few minutes ago, parents of the children on board the sunken Sewol-ho ferry have announced an appeal in front of Tanwon High School, urging for swift rescue operations, while also criticizing the media for its indiscriminate reports on this incident. I'll have more details on that in our later newscast. Now, this was Kwon So-ah reporting live from the Korea University Ansan Hospital.
The Sewol-ho ferry tragedy has hit Tanwon High School especially hard, as more than 300 of its students were on board the vessel, most of them missing or dead when it capsized. The school will reopen its doors later this week, and the grieving students will be met with the help of professionals who will guide them through the most difficult moments of their lives. Kim Sung-hyun has this report.
Despite still being in severe shock, students of the Tanwon High School in Ansan will be returning to their classrooms this week. Laughter and joy filled the ship when it departed on a school trip to Jeju Island, but now there are only tears left. The Sewol-ho was carrying 325 students from Tanwon High School in their junior years. The school has temporarily closed twice since Wednesday, the day of the incident, but there were concerns from parents of sophomores and seniors who asked that students be able to return to their daily routines as soon as possible. The Gyeonggi Provincial Office of Education held a briefing Sunday and announced its plan to reopen the school this Thursday. When students return, the focus will be on helping the students cope with the traumatic events of the past several days.
We will primarily progress with a therapy program to help the students recover from the mental shock, and will gradually return to usual class schedules.
There are currently around 100 doctors and therapists ready to help at the high school. The students of Tanwon High School are also grieving over the death of their vice principal, who was rescued from the Sewol-ho ferry but later committed suicide over apparent feelings of guilt. Experts worry that many students will be affected by post-traumatic stress disorder, which can occur even years after a shocking incident occurs. Kim Sung-hyun, ARIRANG News.
Visiting U.S. President Barack Obama is expected to spend most of his time in Korea this week, expressing sympathy over the ferry sinking and the loss of so many young lives. President Obama will spend 2 days in the country from this Friday. The White House says Obama has ordered the U.S. to provide everything it can to help the ongoing search and rescue operations. An amphibious assault ship, the USS Bonham Richard, is already in the area helping, and a salvage ship, the USNS Safeguard, is on its way from Thailand. The U.S. leader is also expected to assure Seoul of Washington's security commitment to the Korean Peninsula and to promote bilateral economic ties. The families of the missing want search operations speeded up before the neap tidal cycle comes to an end around Thursday. But in their time of need, the entire nation is reaching out to comfort the families of the victims and show their support. Thousands of volunteers from the wide spectrum of Korean society have traveled to the site to offer them a shoulder to lean on. Im Yoon-hee has more.
Now entering the 7th day since the ferry accident, families who have yet to find their loved ones continue to wait in undescribable sadness. And to offer comfort and help, many have come together from across the country. Many groups are also on site, busy providing support in the rescue operations. 119 rescue workers from across the country have given up their holidays and gathered in Jin-joo Island to help transport patients. They have also made possible the swift transportation of victims discovered on site. There are also many volunteers who are ready to jump into the waters to help in the rescue operation. Former members from Special Forces are one example.
만약에 저기 나가 활동을 시키면 5분이 다시 와서 교들 나가면 여기 5분 나갈 수 있다는 아 우리가 거기 구경하려고 만약에 시시라 있으면 시시라
Meanwhile, civilian divers draw up plans at the port for the rescue operation.
모터보드가 있어요. 조그만 보드. 그걸 해서 2대씩 줄을 줄 거예요. 닷을 줘서 어떻게 하느냐? 여기다 하나 딱 닷을 떨구고 그 배로 끌어서 이렇게 끌 거예요. 줄을 또 하나는 이쪽에 떨고서 이렇게 끌 거예요. 그럼 요 맞아지는 부분이 있잖아요. 여기다 묶을 거거든요.
Shortly after news about the accident broke, these volunteers rushed over to the Jin-joo Island area to aid in the search and rescue operation.
지금 배 왔어. 지금 일단은 구조대 분들이 먼저 가야 되니까 지금 이 장비를 지금 다 싣고 갈 거야. 이거 다 지금 여기 다 준비돼 있어 가지고 일단 이거 먼저 다 싣고 그런 다음에 우리가 탈 수 있으면 타고.
It's the hope and commitment to help those in desperate need that brought these divers and many others together at the site of the accident. Im Yoon-hee, ARIRANG News.
With almost 6 full days passing now since the ferry started to sink, most experts now believe it would be a miracle if there are any survivors found. This, however, isn't stopping the families of the missing and the entire nation hoping for good news. Son Jang-in reports.
우리 친구들아, 끝까지 희망 잃지 말고 그리움에 지쳐있는 우리 곁으로 꼭 살아서 돌아와 다오.
They have never met the students who were on board the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, but those gathered sobbed all night and begged them to come back safe and sound. Everyone prayed, hoping for the warmth of the candlelight to be sent to those who may be still trapped in the deep, cold water.
저와 같은 어린 학생들이
It just breaks my heart, the thought of students like myself trembling in fear and dying.
Students, parents, children, and grandparents all united as one as they held on to positive thoughts, waiting for a miracle to happen. They cried out loud, "Do not lose hope and do not give up."
We're desperately hoping for the innocent students who are fighting for their lives to be able to return back into the arms of their parents and families.
The dim light of candles were also lit in Ansan. In messages they wrote for those still missing, residents expressed how much they regret not being able to rescue them sooner. Students and parents from Tanon High School in Ansan closed the school for the day and filled the area with candlelights. In Seoul, citizens promised they will wait for the missing until the end, along with their families that await them. While search and rescue efforts are growing grim, the nation is holding strong and is showing no signs of letting the last flicker of hope burn out. Son Jang-in, ARIRANG News.
Let's get an update on the weather conditions in Jin-do and around the country. As of about an hour ago, the waves have been remaining calm at 0.6 meters and winds are blowing at 6.3 meters per second and water temperature is about at 11.6 degrees Celsius. And the visibility underwater should greatly improve when the current flow is at their slowest. One is coming up at 2:16 p.m. and at 7:31, and the speed of flow should decrease 1 hour before and 1 hour after these times. And since we get the neap tides from today till Thursday, well, neap tides indicates the speed of tidal currents go down to their slowest, so it's predicted that the search and rescue operations over at the site could take place for all day long. Well, for the rest of the country, we could continue to have early summer-like conditions. High in Seoul will rise to 23 degrees Celsius under lots of sun, and over in Jin-joo can also expect to have a mild conditions under mostly sunny skies. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back with more updates after noon.
Well, thank you, Chian. That's about it for now. We'll be having more updates on the ferry sinking in about half an hour, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching.